PPPs are a language game. That is a way of changing a label to keep on promoting contracting out policies and privatization policies. What is happening is a privatization in education and a privatization of education. What does it mean? Privatization in education means that market mechanisms and norms, rules from the private sector are being introduced in the public education sector. So for instance, choice, competition, etc., that are normally norms and rules from that are very different to the way the public sector is regulated are being introduced. But it doesn't mean that the public schools are privatized. It means that they are going to play with different rules of the game. On the other hand, privatization of education means that the state is going to liberalize the education sector. And this way will allow private schools to provide public education and to compete against public providers. When we think about education PPPs, we normally think about private schools like religious schools, schools run by NGOs. But today, in African countries, Asian countries, there are more and more small community entrepreneurs that are organizing very small schools. And at the same time, there are very big companies that are also running schools as big transnational corporations. So you have a very big variety, a big diversity of actors that can be part of PPPs. And I think that this is a very strategic question, because when we talk about the effects of PPPs, we need to unpack the private sector. It's not the same a school run by a Catholic order or by an NGO than a for-profit school. It's not the same a very deprofessionalized school that is run by people from the community, that they are trying to make a profit out of the fact that the state is not reaching this community, than a very highly professionalized private school. So when we talk about the effects, the outcomes, and the implications of PPPs, we need to unpack the private and to look who is exactly this. What it has been really shown is that PPPs can have harmful effects for education equity. They can increase school segregation, crime scheming, and all these phenomena that can be problematic for social cohesion. So this is a paradox, because on the one hand, policy entrepreneurs and people in aid agencies are very enthusiastic about the idea of PPPs, but on the other hand, we have evidence that is telling us that we should be at least cautious with this sort of ideas. What is the problem? The problem is that there are hundreds of pieces of research that are being published today on PPPs, and they get contradictory results. This is not surprising, because the implementation of PPPs or quasi-markets in education is very selective. It's not like PPPs will always work or will always be terrible for education quality. The fact is that they are very sensitive to context, they are very sensitive to the way the PPP has been designed, and they are very sensitive to the way actors, families, students, teachers behave in the context of PPPs. So it's not surprising that research on the same topic can reach contradictory results. The problem here is that if you want to advocate for PPPs, you can cherry picking the pieces of evidence that are showing the results that will be useful for you to push for this idea. So the existing evidence allows you to say that PPPs work or PPPs doesn't work.